I recently put out a video on 5 steps or 5 key elements for how to be more assertive if you are somebody who struggles with people pleasing or if you are worried about stirring the pot. And in that video, I mentioned that I recently had an experience at work where I was able to communicate assertively and get what I need and improve the relationship of the person that I was communicating with. And I promised to make a little in-depth case study like thing about that example and why it worked so well. So here it is. I work part-time in the film industry. I am a camera assistant, and where I work, that means every now and then I am the person that's responsible for transferring all the footage that's captured on the camera throughout the day, transferring that to drives, external drives, that we then send off to the editor to edit. There's a couple different drives that we can use. The industry standard, at least where I work, is an SSD, which is a solid state drive. It's 10 times faster than a HDD, which is a hard disk drive. So important context there. Anyway, a few weeks ago, I was getting ready to go on this job that this producer had hired me for. And I typically like to ask a lot of questions like, hey, what are the what's the gear that we're using? What are we shooting? There's all sorts of technical things that I ask. And one of the things I asked about was, what kind of drive are we backing up to? And the producer responded to me and said, oh, we're working with HDDs. And she actually sent me a link to what they're going to be purchasing. And I went, whoa, like all the red flags, all the alarm bells went off in my mind because I was like, that's nuts. You're not supposed to use HDDs when you're backing things up because they're 10 times slower. And I know this. I figured it was just, this producer isn't a very technical person. Maybe they don't know the difference between SSDs and HDDs. Maybe they don't know the impact of like how slow HDDs really are going to be for this kind of job. So I responded and I went, oh, you know what? SSDs are really the best solution to use in this kind of situation because they're 10 times faster than HDDs. And in my email, I included a link to the same store that she was shopping on, but just the SSD version because I figured it was just a mix-up. Anyway, I hear back from the producer and she says, no, we can't go with the SSDs. We have a super, super limited budget for this shoot because, whatever reasons. So we have to use the HDDs. So at that point, I'm kind of going, oh shit, they're actually going to give me these HDDs and my life is going to be significantly more difficult because this is going to take forever. I'm going to be on set for hours and hours after we were scheduled to end. That's going to really suck a lot. I'm not going to get home until like 3 a.m. So I took a step back and I went, okay, Tally, when you tried to appeal to the producer from a, this is going to take extra time perspective, it didn't work. That was not something that the producer was super concerned about. Or at least not concerned enough to change their mind. And I had to remember that the goal of the producer isn't necessarily to make my job super easy for me. The goal of the producer is to make sure that we're staying within the budget. So I had to think of it not in terms of time and impact to my ability to do my job, but in terms of the impact to the overall budget of the project. So I actually took out a piece of paper, did a bunch of calculations, did a lot of estimates for, okay, if we have 3 drives that we're backing up to and 2 cameras, that means every time we offload a round of cards, it means we have to transfer 6 times, and how long is that going to take? And I figured out it was going to take me 7 to 10 hours to dump all this data. And then I figured out, okay, the earliest we're going to be able to start transferring the footage onto the drives is 2:30. And if it takes 7 hours total, that means, and then there's breaks in between so-and-so, that means that the earliest I'd be able to get out of there is 9 p.m. while everybody ended work at 6 or midnight. So then I was able to go. So I figured out that if we use these hard drives, because they are so slow, it would cost either an additional 3 or 4 hours of overtime for me because I'd be working past the standard 10-hour day for the film industry in my city, or I would have to finish working the next day and I would charge them half of my day rate because I ain't working for free. And so when I got back to the producer, I basically said, if we stick to this plan of getting HDDs, then it's going to take me an extra 3 hours of overtime on the day that we're shooting, or I'm going to have to work a little bit the next day and I'm going to have to charge you a half day rate. So I was able to say, hey, if we use these slow drives, which you said that we are, either I'll have to work on that day and that'll cost an extra X amount of dollars, or I'm going to have to finish the next day and I'm going to have to charge you half my day rate, which is Y amount of dollars. How would you like to proceed? And she got back to me the next morning and said, hey, we were able to move some money around and we are able to purchase the SSDs now instead of the HDDs. So all of the extra complication and extra money that would have cost to use the HDDs, now we don't have to deal with that anymore. And I was like, yay, thank you. I really appreciate it. Anyway, I was very grateful and I expressed that great gratitude, but that's not the point of the video. The point of the video is what worked well here. What worked well is I was able to take something that felt like my problem, right? It's working with those slow drives was going to really impact. It was going to make me stay longer. It was going to become a serious interruption to my ability to do the rest of my job. It was something that was stressing me out, basically. I was able to take that problem and go, okay, what's the impact to the larger picture? What's the impact that the producer cares about? And how do I appeal to that impact? And that impact was monetary. So if the producer has a budget and they're super concerned with making sure that we stay within the budget, then I had to show her, hey, if we stay with these HDDs, sure, you're saving some money on the SSDs, but you're actually going to lose that same money, if not more, because I'm going to have to work overtime because of these because of the calculated estimated amount of time that it would take to transfer all that data. So once I was able to take a step back and go, you know what, this isn't just impacting me, this is impacting the entire project because it's going to cost more, it's going to add all these complications because I'm going to have to stay at the venue later and we're going to have to it caused all these extra complications. And when I was able to demonstrate that, not just what was uncomfortable or frustrating for me, but what was going to be a larger impact, what was going to overcomplicate things for the entire project and cost more money. Once I was able to take a step back and see that and demonstrate that to the person I was working with, they went, oh yeah, that is not going to work for us. We better go with the solution that you suggested. And I didn't point fingers. I didn't blame, right? I didn't tell this producer like, hey, you're so stupid. You don't understand the technical difference between an SSD and HDD. And obviously it's going to take longer. I just explained more. I just made sure that they understand the impact, that they understand all their options and all of the impacts and the financial impacts of their options. And I made sure to ask solution-oriented questions. So instead of just dumping a bunch of problems on this producer, who by the way was probably really overworked and handling other things and very stressed, instead of just dumping some problems on this person, I was able to say, hey, here are the 3 options that we have. Here are the impacts of all of those 3 options that we have. How would you like to proceed? Right? Treating the person with respect. And you know what? By communicating assertively, by finding that shared common goal, that shared language, by showing the impact on the larger, broader picture, and by asking those solution-oriented questions, I was able to not just help myself, but help the project. I was able to help the larger team by simplifying things. And I was also able to show the producer that, you know what, I'm not just watching out for me, I'm watching out for the larger team. And by the way, I was so excited about this example of how assertive communication can be beneficial for all parties involved that I actually put together a free guide on how to stop people pleasing. If you struggle with being assertive, if you struggle with speaking up for yourself because you're worried about stirring the pot, I actually share 10 strategies or 10 tips for how to communicate more confidently so that you can get what you want and improve the relationships with the people around you. So be sure to download that free guide. I'll link in the description and also in the comments below. I hope this video was helpful and I'll see you in the next one.